Master Yoda is often regarded as one of the most influential Jedi Masters in the history of the galaxy, with a 900-year lifespan that has seen some of the most significant events in galactic history. Master Yoda is one of the most skillful, most powerful, and most experienced Jedi Masters of his era and potentially of all time. As Grand Master of the Jedi Order, he directly oversaw everything that the Order of the Republic did throughout the era of the Clone War, guiding from his centuries of wisdom in order to build the Jedi Order into the epitome of what he believed the Jedi could and should be. Yoda's duel with Palpatine in the Senate chambers served as a landmark event in the Clone Wars conflict and in the trajectory of the galactic history, as this was the culmination of not only the Clone Wars conflict, but the culmination of the millennia of old rivalry between the Jedi and the Sith orders. Yoda's defeat at the hands of the Emperor directly ushered in the era of the Galactic Empire, and while the Emperor was able to erect his forces in glorious fashion, he was well aware of Yoda's survival at the end of their duel and at the end of Revenge of the Sith. While he assigns the Clone Armada to continue searching for Yoda throughout the Jedi Temple, why did Palpatine seemingly abandon the search for the Grand Master? Why was Palpatine unable to find the aging Jedi Master in the coming years, despite knowing that Yoda was most certainly alive, as well as held the most promising chance of challenging Palpatine's newly formed Galactic Empire? Well, stick with us today, weary acolytes of the galaxy, and let's explore this idea. And why did Palpatine stop his search for Grand Master Yoda? While Palpatine is an arrogant individual and believes himself to be superior to the Jedi Order, including Yoda, he is not stupid. And the closing minutes of Revenge of the Sith illustrate this perfectly. Upon hearing that the clones have yet to find the body of Yoda, he understands that this means Yoda is not dead, and he orders the troops to double their search, though Yoda would ultimately slip through their fingers and escape to the distant planet of Dagobah. The simple answer as to why he ultimately didn't abandon his search immediately, and in fact, he tried to find Yoda for many years following the events of Revenge of the Sith. It would be around 2 decades though before Palpatine would hear of the ultimate demise of Grand Master Yoda, through prodding through the mind of Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. But still, why did he abandon his search in the 2 decades prior to this? The most interesting part of Yoda's exile is that the choice of planet in which he ultimately chose to reside on, that being Dagobah. And he chose Dagobah not simply by chance, but for a very specific reason. Dagobah was far from a simple swampland that it appeared to be on the surface, as it served as one of the purest planets within the fabric of the Force, and by proxy, had one of the strongest Force energies of the known planets within the galaxy. The Force itself draws its energy from life, and as Obi-Wan describes it in A New Hope, it's an energy field created by all living things becoming intertwined. And Dagobah was one of the strongest Force Nexus planets in the galaxy, particularly due to the abundance of natural life that had flourished without the intervention of sentient species who might seek to colonize the planet and erect cities. Dagobah is simply filled with more life than a common planet. This particular strength within the Force meant that the energy fields of Dagobah were perfect for hiding a figure of Yoda's stature and immense Force potential, with his own signature in the Force becoming masked, as Yoda's species is widely regarded as one of the most naturally Force-gifted species in the history of Star Wars. His presence in the Force was strong enough to be felt by numerous Force sensitives, and we've seen particularly powerful Force users leave tremors throughout the galaxy that can be detected by other Force wielders. This meant that while on Dagobah, Yoda essentially had no Force signature, and with the planet being so far removed from the rest of the Central Empire, Palpatine simply never ventured close enough to the elusive swampland to find Yoda. Not to mention that Dagobah had a distinct dark side of the Force adherence, meaning that Yoda's light side signature was hidden perfectly. If anyone got close enough to Dagobah in order to sense Yoda, they would instead see a conflicted, chaotic planet ripe with untamed energy within the Force, and this would deter most searchers from believing that this unkept swampland was the house of one of the most prolific Jedi Masters in galactic history. This even led Luke Skywalker, one of the most powerful Force sensitives in the galaxy, and the heir to one of the most immeasurably powerful Force bloodlines in galactic history, being able to come and go to train with the Grand Master, without the Empire suspecting a thing. All of this, however, does not mean that Palpatine actually abandoned his search for Yoda, as Palpatine actually put out massive bounties on the Grand Master, seeking the help of bounty hunters as well as the Inquisitors as well as Lord Vader, putting Yoda as the most wanted individual in galactic history. and just directly below him, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Because of the massive bounty, many individuals and bounty hunters of the galaxy would actually bring Palpatine fake Yodas, killing small targets and then dressing them up to look like the Grand Master. In the end though, Yoda was safely hidden away on Dagobah, and Palpatine believed himself to be too important to directly go search for him. In Palpatine's mind, it was believed that Darth Vader's final test would in fact be Grandmaster Yoda, and that one day Vader would eventually be able to hunt down Yoda. However, he wasn't going to waste his time looking for a Grandmaster whose order was long dead. He fully understood the significance of finding and killing Yoda once and for all. The fact simply remains that despite the immense array of power and resources that both the Empire and Palpatine alike had at their disposal, he simply did not have the reach necessary to track the Grandmaster down, especially because this was not Palpatine's immediate goal at the time. His more immediate goal was establishing the Empire. This carries with it numerous pressing responsibilities that had to be addressed personally, and Palpatine was only able to delegate the search for Master Yoda and other Jedi survivors to his underlings, which later led to the establishment of various Inquisitors who specialized in hunting down Jedi, although none of them were powerful enough to ultimately hunt down the Grand Master or even locate him. However, these Inquisitors would have most certainly been aware of who Yoda was and the threat that he posed, and many of them would have been finding Yoda be their top priority, although none of them would succeed. With Darth Vader serving as Palpatine's immediate right-hand man, the search for Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Yoda did in fact progress for the following decades, though it proved that they ultimately outsmarted the Empire, with Yoda as well as Obi-Wan Kenobi able to evade Darth Vader and the Inquisitors as well as the Emperor and the remainder of his forces. Eventually, Palpatine moved all of his resources away from finding the Jedi, as he believed no matter if Yoda and Obi-Wan were still out there, there was no way that they could rise yet again, as he believed them to be relics of an order long past. The collection of these individual factors all ultimately culminated with Yoda's ultimate survival for the greater part of the next 2 decades, with Dagobah shielding Yoda from Palpatine, who was already immensely preoccupied with his current responsibilities under the newly forged regime. In the end, Palpatine simply grew bored and believed that Yoda, even as powerful as he had once been, was no longer a threat to his newly founded empire. Not to mention that Palpatine believed that he had fully broken Yoda's spirits during their last duel. Not only had he defeated him hand to hand and with his abilities within the Force, but Palpatine's plan had ultimately come to full fruition, and he defeated Yoda and the Jedi within his mind. But anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this explanation for why Palpatine ultimately gave up on looking for Yoda? And do you think that this makes sense in the events of Star Wars canon? What do you think of this reasoning for why Palpatine ultimately abandoned the search for Yoda and deemed him a non-threat? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the channel. May the Force be with you, and I hope you have a great day.